Hey, how's it going, everyone? Hey, I am Dan Lomar. I'm the acting safety officer in the Flying 20 Club right now, and also the maintenance officer on 64448. And I wanted to just come at you guys today. If you couldn't make it to the meeting, I'm going to give a safety briefing there tonight, just recapping the accidents of 2020. And I feel it's important enough that even if you can't be at the meeting, I did want to share some of this information with you. Like I said, I'm the acting safety officer in the 2020 Flying 20s right now. And just a little bit of background on myself is retired military, flew F-16s right here in Springfield in our own backyard. Missed those airplanes and currently flying for United. I'm coming to you from Frankfurt right now, so that's why we got looks like I'm in a hotel room because I am. But anyway, as a safety officer, I want to kind of bring to the club my experience as both a military pilot and also in the airline pilot. I think there's a lot to offer there, and I wanted to kind of share some of those thoughts with you, and then also, like I said, give you this quick recap of the accidents that happened in 2020. So without further ado, looking back at 2020, there's good news and bad news. The good news is the general aviation community is not inventing new ways to crash airplanes. The bad news is we're not learning from past mistakes. In 2020, there were 188 total fatal accidents, and which is down from 2019 and 210 when there were 210 accidents. Could you contribute that to lower flying hours because of COVID? Yeah, that's a real possibility. So keep that in mind. The best metric for measuring accidents against is hours flown, which is a very difficult metric to know in general aviation what it is. It's an educated guess at best. Where are the standout areas? 100 out of 188, 160 of them were VMC, visual meteorological conditions. 28 were IMC, 167 during the day, and 21 at night. So you'd think that the better conditions create fewer accidents. That's not necessarily the case. And again, but is that where the bulk of flying happens? It probably is. That's probably a contributing factor to that. But the thing is, even you go out on a beautiful, clear day, just keep in mind that that's when accidents are still happening. Here's an interesting standout, and that is by age category, and that is accidents were kind of bookend on both ends. The youngest were two teenagers, and the oldest was a pilot over 90. The bulk of accidents happened in a 30-year age range from 50 to 80. In that age bracket, that was 2/3 of all the accidents, so kind of an interesting standout there. Is that where the bulk of flying hours happen? Yeah, that's a good possibility, but there's no way to know that for sure. Either way, it's just it's interesting to see that age category had the bulk of accidents in 2020. Operational standout areas: 7 were mid-air collisions. So see and avoid. 9 were mishandled aircraft abnormalities leading to an accident. So this is interesting because I don't really know the details on these things, but it's interesting because it wasn't the abnormality itself that created the accident. It's the distraction of the abnormality that created the accident. So keep that in mind. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Fly the airplane first. Don't forget that. 23 had to do something with terrain, something attached to the ground. So again, a map study. What's your minimum safe altitude? Applies VFR, IFR. Most likely, you're probably more likely to hit something on a VFR flight than you are on an IMC flight, because when you're IMC and you're under control of air traffic control, they're going to make sure you're above your min safe altitude. So it's up to us in VMC to make sure we apply to min safe altitudes and our heads on a swivel for down low doing ground reference maneuvers or something like that. 22 due to mechanical failure. A 21 accident due to loss of thrust on takeoff, resulting in a stall spin. So that is a big difference between general aviation and airlines. We brief a takeoff maneuver, an engine out procedure, every single takeoff. We brief the takeoff if we have an engine out, and we brief the departure itself. So that is a big thing. We are mentally prepared for that to happen before we ever release the brakes. Actually, before we even leave the gate, we are mentally prepared. So that is a big difference, because we can go through that in general aviation. We can go through that rehearsal in our head also. And that's one of the things I want to emphasize this year, is kind of having some briefings and some videos on how we can go about and doing that and apply that in the general aviation world. And then the big bulk, 22%, which is the biggest category, which is twice as much as the next big category. 22% was attributed to loss of airspeed awareness. So again, this goes back to aviate, navigate, communicate. Sad to say, I think our local pilot who had the accident in near Lincoln last March, this is probably what this was, down low sightseeing, and we believe it was a stall spin accident due to loss of airspeed awareness. So hey man, just be heads up on this. The big difference in the general aviation world versus the airline world on this is that we train to stay out of the slow speed environment, whereas when you go into an FAA check ride, as a private pilot, they kind of train you to make you proficient in the slow speed environment in some ways. Okay, so we train stall spin recoveries, whereas airlines train stay away from the slow speed environment altogether unless you're configured stable and coming in for a landing. So that's one of the big differences right there. And then there's a concept out there now called designated minimum maneuvering speed, which we can start to apply to general aviation flying. And essentially what that is 1.404 times your flaps up stall speed. Once you can mark that on your airspeed indicator. And once you go below that, that should be a red flag. You're now going to the slow flight airspeed regime. So I'm going to talk more about that this year. I think it's a great technique to have it in the back pocket there. What can we do as a club? One of the things I want to encourage us all to do is just more interaction. Let's learn from each other. What are we going to do as a club to do that? We've got a private Facebook page that's been out there for a while. Not a lot of activity on it. Never really been promoted a whole lot. But we're going to keep that one. I believe we're going to have a public Facebook page so that we can go on there, share our stories. I also want to get some publicity out there so that the public can see what we're doing also. But just generally speaking, more interaction among club members. That's kind of the idea behind it. Also, I took one of my personal YouTube channels and I converted that to a Flying 20 YouTube channel. So I've got a few of my own fun videos on there. I've curated safety and instructional aviation videos on there so that we can constantly as a club just link back to that thing. If I come up with something cool, I'm going to put it on there. I'm going to post out give an email blast after the club so that we can all stay up with this stuff. As I go forward, like I said, my philosophy is try to bring my experience and the airline concept of crew working together as a crew, some learning from each other, and then what we in the airline world what we call an AQP program, an advanced qualification program. There is an AQP syllabus for general aviation that is out there, and I am going through that with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm trying to implement that into videos, flight reviews, things like that, that we can pull those exact same safety techniques out and we can implement on our own. The FAA the FAA is slowly going towards scenario-based training. But it's a long ways off because if you think about it, they're only doing this. You only take a scenario-based training when you take a check ride. When's the last time you took a general aviation check ride? Yeah, for some of us, or for some, it may have been 30 or 40 years ago. So keep in mind. And then the other thing is the NTSB does not do a whole lot of favors for general aviation as far as making sure safety practices really get implemented, and compare that to the airlines. When there is an airline accident, the entire worldwide industry jumps on it and asks themselves, how can we train this out of existence? So they are on it right now, whereas in general aviation, we're really on it on our own. It's up to us as individuals to do our best to implement our own safety procedures and go from there. So those are some of the concepts I want to bring to the club, and we'll go from there. So hey, I encourage, we're going to get this Facebook page going. I've got the YouTube channel going right now. I encourage your participation and your interaction on Facebook. Let's learn from each other. Let's share from each other. Hey, if you've got a trip to Florida or Louisiana or whatever, hey, look, we all don't go down there that often. I would love to hear your experiences on how you dealt with things. Your planning, any issues you ran into. I would absolutely love to hear from that. That's my weak link. I'm a high-time military airline pilot. I'm a low-time GA pilot, so I still have a lot to learn, and I really enjoy hearing from everybody else. So anyway, hey, hope you're all doing great, and fly safe out there, and have a happy 2021. And if we haven't met yet, please come up to me, introduce yourself. I've probably met about half the club members, but I try to meet everybody when I can. So please come up, say hi, send me an email, whatever. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, thanks. Fly safe out there.